Boundaries are not to keep others out. They're created to keep you together.
We feel like the need to explain ourselves a lot, especially when it comes to saying no.
Yeah.
If I say no to something, or if I'm doing something that people are questioning, no one needs to know why I'm doing it. I just know that it's the right decision for me and my business.
Why am I saying no? Like, what am I trying to protect right now? Because that's what you're doing. You're protecting your best yes. You're going to cheat something. What are you going to choose to cheat? Are you going to cheat on your family? Or are you going to cheat on this person who's asking you to do something that you're just feeling reactive to say yes to, basically?
Welcome back, you guys, to another episode of the Beyond the Scale podcast. I am your host, Katherine, and today I am talking to Martine Williams. Martine is a life coach. She's a keynote speaker, a public motivator, a podcaster, a mompreneur. She is doing all the things. I'm so excited for you to listen in on this conversation with Martine. Martine knows what it takes to build a business from the ground up, while also prioritizing time with her husband and her 2 children. Martine became a thriving entrepreneur, heading a multi-million-dollar organization, leading and coaching nearly 28,000 women. Yes, you heard that right. With more than 17 years as a leader and national speaker, Martine found her true passion for helping other women win at work without losing themselves in the process. She knows the struggle that all mompreneurs face and how to find harmony without experiencing serious burnout. As the founder and CEO of Illuminate You Coaching, she delivers a proven approach for empowering women and leadership teams to break through the burnout and get from where they are to where they want to go with more clarity, confidence, and courage. So welcome, Martine, to the podcast. I'm so excited about our conversation today.
Thank you so much for inviting me on. I love to talk about just entrepreneurship and female entrepreneurship, mompreneurship, whichever one your listeners relate to, and to talk about burnout. So thank you for bringing me on. I'm excited.
Yeah, I am too. And I have experienced burnout a few times, but it wasn't until this most recent burnout I experienced that I realized, and this is something that I think I've seen you share before, that my burnout was due to the fact that it wasn't that my plate was too full. It just wasn't full enough of the things that brought me joy. And I kind of want to start there because I think that sometimes people feel that burnout is just overload. They're overwhelmed. They're doing too many things. And a lot of times it's the other way around. It's that they're just not doing enough of what makes them happy. So in your experience, how does burnout manifest in mompreneurs and really any moms at all that could be listening to this? And how do they even get to that point?
Yeah. I mean, well, you really just like nailed it down, because I think most of us think of burnout, we think of exhaustion, we think of overwork, over output, and that is definitely a piece of it. But if you were to look at your week and you were to do, like, this is something I do with my clients, like really like draw a line in the middle of the paper and write down all the things that you do and all the things that bring you joy and compare the list. And it's really just eye-opening to see how much time we're investing in things that don't bring us joy. And listen, laundry doesn't bring me joy, but it's just part of the role. It's part of the job. So we're not, everything we do is not going to necessarily light you up and fill you up with joy. But what happens is our identity starts to shift. And like when you think about when you were a little girl and you had play, right? You had play in your life. And as we get older, we just lose that. We lose the fun. We lose everything has to have a productive end. I don't know where we have bought that lie over the years, that as a mompreneur, as a mom, as a CEO, because listen, burnout is not just for mompreneurs. It is not just for women. There are plenty of men who struggle with this too. But naturally, as moms and as women, we are nurturers, right? That's how God designed us. And so we're constantly pouring out and pouring out and pouring out, and we're not pouring in, and we can't pour from an empty cup. And so, I think we've adopted this belief that everything we do has to have a productive end. We can't just do things for the sake of fun. And so a lot of times the reason it manifests is that they don't even know. Like, if I was to ask you right now, if you had an extra 30 minutes a day to do something just for you, what would you do at that time? And when I ask that question, right, the majority of them are like, I don't know. And they just have
Right.
this blank look on their face because it's been so long since they have thought about themselves in that way, that they haven't thought about, well, if I'm not listening to a book on audio to grow myself professionally, if I'm not, doing the laundry or making sandwiches or all the other things, those are all productive. And rest can be the most productive thing you can do for yourself. Fun can be some of the most productive things that you do for yourself because it creates that growth, it creates that open space and provides that spark that just gets lost along the way in building the business and being the mom and all the other roles that you wear.
Oh, I want to stop you right there for a second because like you are speaking to my soul right now. I just wrote down productive end and put a bunch of stars around it because that is how I feel 24/7. Like if I do have 30 minutes, it's like what can I do around the house or what errand can I run that is going to be most productive? It's going to be the best use of my time in those 30 minutes. It's
Yeah.
so hard to relax. And I feel that a lot of female entrepreneurs struggle with this and even women that aren't entrepreneurs. It's like we're always feeling like we have to multitask or triple task and do all of the things, and we don't give
Mhm.
ourselves enough time to just sit and relax. And
Yep.
for me, another part of it is um, I always feel as an entrepreneur that my time needs to be spent on making money. And if I'm
Yeah.
not doing something that's like moving the needle or making me more money, then it's like, what did I even do today?
Hmm.
And that's so hard. So what do you help your clients with when they're in that situation like me? Like how do you help them kind of coach themselves through that or out of it?
It's a process. It takes time to you have to kind of shift your mindset on it first, right? And that's the
Yeah.
first mindset is that everything you do does not have to be productive, or the mindset of rest is productive, play is productive, right? So just kind of changing your thoughts, because I'm a real firm believer that your thoughts are what are producing your results. So if you're
Right.
trying to create more space, you're trying to create more boundaries, you're trying to create just that free time for yourself, then it does start with, what do I believe about free space? What do I believe about margin? Right? Because that's what we're talking about here, is creating margin. And if you were trying to read a book that didn't have space in the margins, like, it would be really hard because the words are just going from left to right, right? It would just look like chaos on the paper. And so that's what happens in our lives, is we create this chaos and then we have confusion around it. So it really does start, number one, with helping them to change their mindset and their beliefs around rest, around play, around, some of the most productive and best ideas that I have come up with in my own business has come from periods of like working in the garden or taking a walk, or just having that moment of play to let my brain just not be in entrepreneurship. Like, it's really hard. We're a unique breed. It takes a special
Right.
person to be an entrepreneur, just like it takes a special person to be a nurse, to be a teacher. Like,
Yeah.
we are a unique breed, and it's the biggest personal development journey you'll ever go on. So I think, number one, give yourself grace when you're trying to figure this out, because you probably have been in that space for a really long time. You probably have
Mm.
people that you're alongside in the journey that maybe are putting those expectations on you, or you're just self-imposing them. So I think the first part always is the mindset. You have to check your thoughts on what you're believing about rest and play, and creating those spaces, and just be you and not be the performer, right?
Yeah. That's such great advice. I want to talk about boundaries because I
Mhm.
actually heard this recently from Trent Shelton. I'm not sure if you're familiar with him, but
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
he said that boundaries are a bridge to where you want to go. And I thought that
Mhm.
was so clever because the more I thought about it, it's like an example could be, if you work out early in the morning, a lot of our clients, they're up at 5, 6 a.m. to go get their workout in. Well, one of their boundaries might be that they don't stay up late and they can't stay out late with their friends and they can't stay up watching the Netflix documentary. They have to go to sleep in order to set that boundary, in order to wake up, get their workout in. And so that boundary is a bridge. And a lot of times, like, I look at boundaries as like this roadblock, as this big X sign. It's like, do not enter. This is my
Mhm.
boundary. I'm putting up this wall. But
Yeah.
really, it can be so much more of a beautiful thing, like a rainbow, like a bridge. It can get you to where you want to go. So,
Yeah.
can you talk to us about what the importance of setting healthy boundaries are for mompreneurs, for female entrepreneurs, and how can they start implementing these boundaries without feeling guilty about it?
Yeah, that's the key, right? Without feeling guilty. And I will say
Mm,
again, it just takes practice, like learning to flex the two-letter word that none of us like to say or hear, which is no. And
mm,
understanding that you can be empowered in your no, and that no doesn't make you a mean person. No doesn't make you bossy or make you, stuffy, or all the things that our brain likes to offer up or that society likes to tell us that we should not say no to things. Saying no to something means you get to say yes to something else. And when I think of
yes.
boundaries, again, it starts with that mindset shift of boundaries are not created to keep others out. They're created to keep you together.
Mm,
And if you think of it in that way, because if you do have the mindset or the belief that boundaries are a big red X, or it's a wall I'm putting up, then that doesn't feel, as the natural nurturers that we are, that doesn't feel good. Right. And if it doesn't feel good, you're probably not going to enforce it. You're not going to even like go through the process. So just understanding that creating boundaries is to help keep you together so that you can show up and be the best wife, the best mom, the best entrepreneur that you can be. So it's not about keeping people out, it's about keeping you together. So that's number one. And really figuring out for yourself what is priority for you in this season. This is where I see a lot of moms, entrepreneurs fall into the trap. And I've done that as well, is, trying to balance it all. And I'm a firm believer there's no such thing as balance. It's all about creating harmony, because in my life, there have been seasons when my kids were younger. They were, when I first grew my business and first started my business in 2006, I only had one child at the time, and he was 1 year old. Right. And so he had naps, and I remember just working my business in the nooks and crannies of time. And I remember looking at other entrepreneurs and thinking, wow, they have like these big blocks of time because their kids were older. Right. And so I had to get really clear on what's priority in this season when my kids were younger. Now they're
mm,
16 and 19, right? And they don't want to be with me as much as I actually want
right.
to be with them. And so it's getting really clear on what's priority, because part of the reason why we don't enforce boundaries or don't set them is because we feel like we're being mean, or that we are, being hard to get along with. When really, if you know what your priorities are, then you can look at boundaries as a way of protecting what's most important to you, what's most important to your family in this season. It's not that you're being mean or that you're turning down a really great opportunity. It's not the right opportunity in this season that's right for you and your family.
So I love how you mentioned that saying no just allows you to say yes to more things that essentially add more value to your life, the things that you know you actually need to be spending time on.
Mm,
And one thing I was actually thinking about the other day, because as a business owner in the industry that I am in, we are with our clients all the time. We have 250 locations. I have a lot of owners that I'm really good friends with, and we talk about how sometimes we feel the need to justify
mm.
ourselves. Like when we're saying no, it's like we feel like we owe everyone an explanation. And it took many, many years for me to realize that if I say no to something, or if I'm doing something that people are questioning, no one needs to know why I'm doing
Yeah.
it. I just know that it's the right decision for me and my
Yeah.
business. And I do think a lot of times, especially when you work in like a service-based industry like I do, where you're with customers day in, day out, you're seeing hundreds of people every single day.
Hmm.
And say you change up your workout programming, or you take away a piece of equipment, or you change your schedule of your sessions, heaven forbid, and everybody comes after you, and they're like, "Oh, why are you doing this? Why are you doing it this way? Like, shouldn't you do this instead?" And I feel that a lot of females in particular, we feel like the need to explain
Hmm.
ourselves a lot,
Yeah.
especially when it comes to saying no.
Yeah.
And you hit the nail on the head saying that, we don't want to disappoint people.
Yeah.
That's why we're always saying yes. And we don't want people to feel a certain way about us, when a lot of times they actually don't.
Yeah.
It's just what we think internally.
Yeah.
So, how do you encourage female entrepreneurs to just say no, move on, and like get more comfortable with it?
Yeah. And I think that's the thing, is just learning to get more comfortable with it. It's absolutely just like walking into the gym for the very first time. You've never been in a gym. It's very uncomfortable. You're not familiar with the equipment. You're not familiar with the instructors. You feel like everyone's looking at you. And so, but you just have to keep showing up. right? And show up, and it gets more and more comfortable. There's still pain after the exercise, but you get better, right? You get stronger. It's not that it gets easier, it's just you get stronger, right? And so that's how it is with flexing your no muscle too, is you have to practice. You have to figure out, how can I say no that feels in alignment with how I want to show up and how I want to be remembered in that conversation. So if anything, I always say, just start with, can I get back to you? Or I'm going to need to get back to you. Like, if you're not confident in just saying straight out no, then stop reacting to people's requests. Stop just automatically saying yes. Like, that's our default, because we are people pleasers. We do want to, we wear busy as a badge of honor. And so we want to be Miss Dependable. And here's the thing, when you wear that badge of honor of being busy and Miss Dependable, guess what? More people are coming to you. Because if you are a giver, you have to know your limits, because the takers do not have them. And so that's where you have to get really comfortable. And the more you flex your no muscle and the more you say no, the easier it gets. I promise. I know you're thinking, no, it's just too hard. I feel guilty. It will get easier over time. But it does have to start with, why am I saying no? Like, what am I trying to protect right now? Because that's what you're doing. You're protecting your best yes when you're saying no to something else. Yeah. And so that's kind of where I would say to start with that.
Yeah. And I love that you mentioned, like, we feel like we need to respond or we react versus respond. And I too have definitely done that. Like, I mean, I started out very young as a business owner, and then I grew my business and grew my family at the same time, somewhat similar to you did. And so, like, all of these things were so new to me. And anytime someone would ask me to do something, or if there was any type of conflict between a customer or a team member, I was so quick to react, and I didn't take a second, step back, kind of like analyze the situation and say, okay, should I say no? Should I say yes? What should my course of action be? And then take a little time and then respond. I think that sometimes too, as female entrepreneurs, as mompreneurs, we are so busy and we want to just get things done. And so sometimes we need to pause. And I think that pause can be very challenging, especially for me.
It is. And there's a really great book by Andy Stanley called Choosing to Cheat. And it's a really small book, but it's so powerful, because he talks about, you're going to cheat something. What are you going to choose to cheat? Are you going to cheat on your family? Or are you going to cheat on this person who's asking you to do something that you're just feeling reactive to say yes to, basically? So something is going to get cheated in your time. You get to choose what you're going to cheat. And so that's really important. That's where, going back to knowing what your priorities are, as you're keeping all the balls in the air, as Simon Sinek talks about, you have these balls in the air. You have your work, your family, your health, your family, and your integrity. And what you have to realize is that the rubber ball is the work ball. You drop the work ball, it's a rubber ball. It'll bounce back, right? Your family, your health, your friends, your integrity, you drop that ball, it's a glass ball. And so you drop that as you're juggling all of them. You drop that. It can be scuffed. It can be scraped. It can be shattered. And that's what happens when you don't have what your true priorities are, and being able to really set those boundaries around them. You drop the wrong one that's glass, and then you're doing damage control, right? On your burnout, damage control on the relationships maybe that were scuffed or scattered or shattered in the process of saying yes to someone else, when really you should have said no. I don't want to say should, because should is shaming, but you want to prioritize date nights with your husband, but you said yes to this other thing because you were just in that default setting, which is yes, I want to be Miss Dependable. Yes, I'm going to say yes to that.
I like that. And for some reason, like, as you were saying that, what came to mind for me is reacting on emotions. Like, sometimes we say yes to things in an emotional moment, like maybe our emotions are heightened in a certain situation, and we say yes to the thing that's going to take away from the weekly date night with our significant other. And then maybe you do, show up to this event or this networking group that you've joined, and after 2 weeks or so, you say, I regret this decision. And I did cheat my husband a little bit, not literally, but, cheat the relationship, cheat the time. And you regret it. And so what would you say to someone who's maybe listening to this, that's a mompreneur, and they have found themselves in a season where they've just said yes to too many things.
Yeah.
And they're kind of throwing their hands up in the air saying, I can't do this anymore. I'm now burnout. I don't know where to go from here, which I was here.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I was there and I'm not there anymore. But what would you tell someone that finds themselves in that situation? Like what should be their first step
Mm-hmm.
to trying to pull themselves out of that?
Number one is slow down. Our default, just like our default is to say yes, our default is to speed up. Like we're chasing after the ball and we think we could just run
Yeah.
faster and we'll catch it. The ball just keeps going faster. So you have to slow down to speed up. You have to slow down and really think through, okay, what is causing this? Like you do kind of an assessment, right? What's causing this? Kind of do the what am I spending my time on? What brings me joy? Kind of start there just to kind of see where am I spending my time? Is it am I what's missing? You know, it's kind of like when you do a 3-day food log. Like in your mind, you're thinking, I'm eating pretty good. And then when you do the log, you're like, wow, okay, I had a donut yesterday. I ate a Coke here or whatever. Right. And so it just gives you a
Right.
really good black and white, you know, on paper. These are the things that I'm doing. These are the things that are bringing me joy. And how can I make some adjustments? So for sure, slowing down is the biggest thing because most of us just try to hustle harder. And here's the thing. On the other side of hustle is just more hustle. There's no escaping that. You have to slow down and decide what is going to be right for me in this season. And you can't hustle your way through it. And that's what I see. It's like we get this mentality of, well, one day I'm going to get back to that. Instead of saying, today's my day one. I'm going to slow down. Something's not right. Today is my day one of doing things different because we all have heard this before, but doing the same thing over and over and over again, expecting a different result is insanity. But we do this, right? We're like, well, when the kids get older, then I'll do that. Or when I achieve this level of success in my business, then I'll get back to that. Like one day, one day, one day. And that one day never comes. You have to decide that today is going to be my day one. And things can't keep going the way they're going because number one, our kids are watching us. They're watching how we handle stress. They're watching the amazing, beautiful thing of entrepreneurship and doing it the right way or doing it the burnout way. And so you are the model that our kids are looking at on how we're handling stress and how we're handling different situations. So it's good for them to see you slow down and take the rest that you need to add the fun back in. And it can be small things. That's the other piece that I see when I'm helping people through this and kind of getting more joy back in their life or decreasing the burnout is they have this all or nothing mentality. Like if I can't go to the gym for a full hour, then I'm not going to do anything at all. If I can't eat clean 100% of the time, then what's the point of even trying? If I can't, you know, you fill in the blank there, but we all can kind of fall into that. And so really slowing down and kind of figuring out, am I showing up confidently in these areas of my life that are most important to me? Or am I showing up improving energy? Proving, not improving, but proving. If you're improving mode and you're trying to prove to her, prove to him, prove to yourself that you deserve or that you're worthy of the things that you want for joy, then you're going to burn out because you're constantly trying to prove to others that, you know, I have to be perfect. I have to be like her. I have to hustle. I can do this on my own. That's another big limiting belief that a lot of women have. I can do this on my own. I don't need anyone else's help here. So it's checking your thoughts. It's checking what you're actually spending your time on. And then what can we do differently? Even if it's just something very small, what's the small first step you can take in changing and reversing that burnout?
Yeah. Proving, I love that you mentioned that because that's exhausting.
Mm-hmm.
And many women
Mm-hmm.
and many female entrepreneurs and moms in particular do find themselves proving themselves daily. I was actually, I had another podcast yesterday where we were talking about how moms have this mental list in our heads of all of these things that we've done that day. And it's like, we just want to tell someone, these are all the things I've done. I've run this business. I've done all the laundry. I've done the grocery shopping. And like, you just want someone to like start clapping for you and you want to prove yourself and prove your worth.
Yep.
And you're basing your worth on all that work that you're
Yeah.
doing. And it's absolutely
Yeah.
exhausting. And if you keep that up, you will enter burnout.
Mm-hmm.
And then hopefully you'll have a breakthrough, but sometimes you don't.
Yeah.
And then when you don't have that breakthrough, you just kind of find yourself in that rut.
Yeah.
Like, how do I get out of this? Where do I go from here?
Hmm.
You're questioning everything. I think one thing that, um, helped me when I was in this season of burnout that might be worth mentioning to the audience is like, I had to come to terms with the fact that the list was never going to end.
Yep.
Like, I was never going to feel 100% satisfied, and I had to be okay with that.
Hmm.
And talking about balance, and I'm definitely going to look up that book, Choosing to
Hmm.
Cheat, because I don't believe there is a way that you can balance it all. But I will say that it's never going to feel balanced. There's never going to be an end. And if the sooner you accept that and just be happy and at peace with all of the chaos
Yeah. Yeah.
sometimes, the better off you will be and the better off I was.
Yeah.
Because I so bad as a business owner and as a mom wanted to have like this list of things I needed to get done for my business that day and for the house. And I wanted to just get to the end of the day and sit in peace.
Yep.
And I would find myself like never being at peace with how the day went or how the week went.
Yeah.
And I finally had to say, okay, it's always going to be like this. I have to just draw a line in the sand for myself in order to be happy each day, or I'm never going to experience joy
Yeah.
in this phase of my life.
Yeah. Yeah. You have to define for yourself what success is for you.
Yes.
Because if you're looking at what everyone else is doing, and this is the double-edged sword of social media, is that we do see what everyone else is doing and we do see some really great ideas, but those ideas might be great in that person's season of life and they may not just fit right
Mhm.
now for you. And so you have to define, what does success look like for me in this season that I'm in right now? It may be that you're working 25 hours. It may be working that you're working 40 hours. There's always going to be more work to be done. You're right. So you have to define for yourself, what does success at the end of the day look like for me today? And just know that you know, all you can do is all you can do, and it has to be enough. Because
Yeah.
there's always going to be more laundry. There's always going to be more emails to check. There's always going to be another phone call you could have made. So what is enough for you? Because as
Mhm.
perfectionism, it's hustling in an effort to get approval, right? That's the proving energy that I was talking about. And what we realize is that it's never enough, or we say to ourselves it's never enough. And so then we just keep doing more instead of just saying, this is success for me. These are my 3 must do's of the day. I can affirm myself. I don't need someone else to tell me that I'm amazing. I think it's our job to do that first and foremost. And if we get it from other people, great. But what is enough for you? Because what's enough for me may be different than what it is for you, MK. And so you just have to, that's the slowing down process that most of us don't do. We just try to bulldoze through it and hustle through and grind through it and think we'll get to it at some point or when we get on the other side. But the slowdown is why that's so important.
Yeah. And taking the comparison out of that, I appreciate that you mentioned that because I do feel sometimes, especially with social media, you're seeing these entrepreneurs that maybe they have a similar path as
Mm-hmm.
you and they're writing a book, they've become a speaker, they have a podcast, they're expanding their business, and you're sitting there looking at all of that, thinking to yourself, either two things, I want to be just like them or I want to be nothing like
Yep.
that. And what's wrong with me? Why do I not want to be like that?
Yep.
I found myself in a season like that recently, actually. I mean, ever since I started the podcast, I've gotten more into speaking and being at events. And there have been times where I have struggled. I've teeter tottered on that line of, I really want to be at that event, but also I kind of don't because my kids are really little right
Mm-hmm.
now and I'm really loving this time with them
Yeah.
and I'm loving this work flexibility that I have. But then part of me is like, why don't I want to be there more? What's wrong with me?
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing wrong with me.
No.
My definition of success is different.
Yep.
Just like you said, our definition of success is different. And the sooner you can accept that, the sooner you can be happy with where you're at in your stage of entrepreneurship. And I think we get so stuck in that comparison cycle
Yeah.
that we feel there is something wrong with us for not wanting more.
Yeah.
And more can also be different things. Like my definition of more could be I want more family time at the beach.
Yep.
Whereas your definition of more could be I want to book 12 stages next
Yep.
year to be, a better speaker. And so I think that, our audience, anybody who's listening that's a mompreneur, just know that you have to define your success, just like Martine said,
Yeah.
and you can't compare your success to anyone else's.
No, and it is hard. And so, one of the things I like to encourage my clients to do is just unfollow anyone that makes you feel like you need to be someone that you're not. Like just unfollow them if they're making you feel inferior, or they're making, and it's not that they're doing it intentionally, it's just you watching them is making you feel like you need to do more or be someone that you're not. And so just unfollow them for a season and just see how you feel, right? And if you just need to take a 30-day detox from social media because it's really impacting you, then do it, right? Your business isn't going to fall apart. Your relationships aren't going to fall apart. Like, you will be okay, I promise, if you take some time off from the things that are really, um, you know, energy sucking. Like, who are the energy givers in your life and who are the energy suckers? And some of the energy suckers are people that you're following on social media. So maybe that's part of your process of removing the burnout, is just taking, some time off from that. And when we were talking about balance earlier, one of the examples I like to give with the balance is the harmony. And you think about like an orchestra, right, that's playing, and they have all of these different instruments that are playing. They have big tubas and big drums, and then they have these little tiny flutes, right, that play soft sounds. And so when you think about your life creating harmony, when they all play together, it's like the most beautiful sound, right? There's just all this rhythm that is there. And so there are seasons in your life where you need to play the tuba, right, in your business, and it's loud and it's proud, and you're spending a lot of energy pouring into the business. And then there are seasons where that needs to be your family. Like, my son was a senior last year, and so I really was playing the tuba loud for our relationship because I knew he was going to be leaving the home. And so my business, it didn't take the back burner, but it definitely was not being played as loud. And so there's harmony. But if you're constantly trying to achieve balance across all areas of your life, it's a trap, and it does definitely lead to burnout. So just think of the different instruments in your life, which ones need to be playing louder and which ones need to be playing a little softer in this season, and then communicate that, right? So my family knew during the fall, when I was in direct sales during the fall, that was our busy time of the year. And they knew mom was going to be on calls more often. She was going to be out, getting with working with clients and customers a little bit more. And then the summer months, they're out of school. And so I was able to play the family instrument a little bit louder. And so just communicating those with the people who deserve to be communicated with, right? The people that matter the most to you. The others, it's a simple no. It's a complete sentence. You don't have to explain it. But to your family, like, just have those honest conversations about the seasons of life. It's such a good thing for your kids to understand too.
Yeah, that's such a beautiful analogy. And it really actually makes me feel so grateful to be an entrepreneur
Mm-hmm.
as a mom,
Yep.
because there are many women and many friends that I have that they don't quite have the flexibility that we have.
Yep.
And sometimes they can't decide when they want to play the tuba and when they want to play the flute. I mean, they just don't have that control. And so if you're listening to this and you're a female entrepreneur, just know that you control your future
Yep.
and you should feel really lucky. And if you're in a season of burnout right now, let's figure out how you can break through that and get to the other side, because it really can be a beautiful, harmonious thing.
Yeah.
And so that leads me to my last question for you, Martine. And this has been so great, but I just want to ask, like, what would you leave our listeners with, especially the mompreneurs who are feeling overwhelmed and they're on the brink of burnout right now? What would be your last tip that you could give
Yeah.
them to just try to get out of this season?
Yeah. I would say that, your business, your parenting, your marriage, they're only as healthy as you are. You are your greatest asset, and you must protect her fiercely, because there's going to be, and maybe if you're in that season right now, you feel like you're being pulled in so many different directions. What are the things that you're doing to pour in? Like, be really honest about that. And if it's zero, okay, great. We're at zero. We can only go up from here. What's one thing you can add that's cup filling? And it can be something very, very simple. Like, for me, I realized I was on a women's event, and I realized I was ribbing with one of my good friends, and she was playing music, like fun music, while she was getting ready. That used to be something that I did. And I realized that I was listening to books on audio. I was listening to podcasts. Like, everything was about business, business, business. And here she was listening to 80s and 90s hip hop, which I love. And I thought, I used to do that. right? So it could be
Yeah.
something as simple as that, something as simple as like a car jam session, like turn up the music, put the windows down, like something small that you can start reversing that burnout by adding more of those things in. But everything else relies on you being healthy. So, what is it going to take for you to be healthy? I believe movement is medicine. So, move your body every day, even if it's 15 minutes. Sleep. I think a lot of us, if we just got a little bit more sleep, we wouldn't be facing some of the problems that we're having, because you're showing up exhausted physically, but you're also emotionally and spiritually, and mentally exhausted from all the worries and the stresses. So get better sleep, move your body. What are you doing to pour in? Do you need to go to lunch with a friend? Do you need to have a car jam session? Just start small. Don't overcomplicate it. Just start.
Yeah.
Don't overcomplicate it. Just start.
That's such great advice. Well, Martine, this has been so fun, and I just love talking to you. So, where can our listeners learn more about you and your coaching and all of the great things that you're doing, and listen to your podcast?
Yes, I was going to say, first and foremost, the podcast is called the Mompreneur Life Remixed Podcast. So that's where you can get an episode every single week. We talk about all things mompreneurship. And then you can also visit my website at martinewilliams.com and offer free clarity calls. So if you're listening to this and you're just like, this is resonating with me and I'm just not sure where I am or where I want to go, and you just need to get some clarity, my clarity calls are completely free. So you can sign up for that on the website as well.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. And thank you to our listeners for tuning in for another episode of the Beyond the Scale podcast. Please make sure to check us out on YouTube, Apple Podcast, and Spotify, and share this episode with all of your friends. Until next time, you guys, thanks so much.